And here we are, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome again to another broadcast. Today is Sunday, March the 22nd, 2026. I'm so glad that you guys are here. Hope you guys are having a wonderful day as we're coming to the close of yet another weekend, a beautiful weekend, I may add, right here, or particularly here in the great state of Arizona, where we had some cloud cover, but the sun was up. Made sure I got my sun quotient for today, and I hope you got yours too. I'm just checking and making sure everything is broadcasting, everything is doing what it's supposed to be doing here on this end. And in the meantime, what we're going to do is going to go ahead and get that music going, and as we await people coming on board, okay? This is one I did back in, this is around Christmas time, I believe. Around Christmas time, I believe. I know it's not Christmas now, but I still like the words. Let's go ahead and get this one going. And yeah, we're going to give people time to get on, and let's go. Name of this one is You Can't Find This in a Catalog.
Back in 79, I remember that time, flipping through those pages, dreams in my mind. G.I. Joe riding high in that green army Jeep, yeah. My tail football glowing, I could play in my sleep. Oh, mama saw me circling, she just laughed inside. Said, boy, you better hope that Santa's pockets are wide. And I smile, yeah, I smile, 'cause deep down I knew we'd make it through somehow. Hey, didn't get that moped, didn't get that game, but I got love and I carry that name. You can't find it in a catalog, no you can't.
All right, maybe another 30 seconds here. I'm going to try, y'all, to stick to that 30 seconds. I don't know.
My daddy came home tired, still tucked me in. Hey, mama kept the faith when the lights went dim. Oh, those weren't gifts, they were miracles in disguise. Hey, a love that lasts forever, you see it in my eyes. Hey, now my babies show me what they want this time, but I know what matters, what money can't buy. Oh, yeah, you can't find it in a catalog. No, you can't buy love with a price tag on. Those hugs, those laughs, the lessons they taught. Ain't no store delivering what I got, while the world chased toys and all that shine. I got love and that love was mine. Yeah, you can't find that in a catalog.
All right.
So I give 'em my time, I give 'em my
I'm going to let it play out, y'all. I'm going to let it play out. It's Sunday, y'all.
'Cause the sweetest gift under that tree is the love that my folks gave to me. You can't find it in a catalog. No, you can't buy love with a price tag on. No Atari joy could ever last this long, 'cause my family's love still keeps me strong. Oh, yeah, you can't find that in a catalog. Oh. You see, I thought I wanted toys, but what I really needed was them. Oh, yeah. And that's the kind of gift that never goes out of style. Yeah, you can't find that in a catalog. catalog.
All right. Thank you so much for tuning in to another broadcast. So glad that you guys are here. Like I said again, today is September. Wow, September. I'm all over the place. Today is March the 22nd, 2026. And we are in I believe, the third day. I believe we're in the third day of spring, second or third day. And just nice day. I actually did my breathing exercises. Before I picked up the phone, I made sure I did my breathing exercises first. And I said, yeah, I'm setting my day off right. And then after that, I went for my walk. Now, it was peaking at close to 100 degrees at that point. And that sounds scary, right? It sounds scary. It sounds scary, particularly out here, but it's not, because we're still early in the season. So hot is hot, but when it's like 90s, right at 100, this time of the year, we're not getting the full strength of it yet. So like I said, again, the numbers sound like, ooh, that's crazy. And it's warm, but it ain't that same degree. And give it about another month or two. Oh, it's a whole nother story. It's a whole nother situation, especially when you start getting to 112, 113 or whatever. It's a whole nother situation. And I was just telling my wife, I said, I'm getting older. Typically if I do go out walking and it's, warm out, I'm saying walking like in the community, right? If I'm walking like in the mountains somewhere, I take a much different approach. But if I'm just walking around here, I'll just make sure I drink some water or something before I go. And I'm just local, so I'm fine. But today, I definitely noticed the difference. I passed these two ladies. They were walking. They had their backpacks, their water backpacks. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I said, man, I may need to get one of those. But, man, by the time I was finished my walk, I was like, yeah, I need to go ahead and get me one of those. And, as you're getting older, when I'm younger, I'm like, man, I just get some water. That's it. Now, if I was, like I said, if I was hiking in the mountains or something, I would definitely have my water packs and all that kind of stuff. But, around here, I typically don't need it. But, like I said, as you're getting older, you do have to, be mindful of these changes that your body's going through. Like I was telling my wife, my appetite has definitely changed. It's definitely changed. I used to be able to go to Chipotle, get the bowl or whatever, and then even the burrito or whatever, and just eat it and be, full, If I went to Chipotle on average, and I haven't been in I don't know how long now, but if I was to go to Chipotle, that bowl would last me 2 days. I mean, I can't finish it, and I look at my son, and that's just like a dinner mint for him, but I can't eat like I used to, I went somewhere. Oh, it was somewhere they had like a buy one, get one free or something like that. I couldn't barely finish it. And so my appetite has definitely changed. I said where I am right now is like last night I just had some soup. I was good. If I just, as long as I have fruit and some juices, I can make a smoothie or something like that. That's probably as much as my body can take, right now. I'm not sick or anything. It's not like that at all. It's just like, even I notice the smell of chicken now I'm starting to like really be sensitive to it a little bit. So I'm taking note of all of those things, and I'm sure they're doing stuff to the meat anyway, but I'm noticing things just with my own appetite, and and especially as I'm getting older too, just taking note of those things and being sensitive to that, and instead of just brushing it off, but really taking note of that and saying, you know what, I may need to go with this. You know what I'm saying? And so it's been quite interesting just seeing that go down. I'm like, okay, then let some of this extra baggage that I'm carrying too, let that go down too. But I've been walking, I try to walk every day, get my exercise in and all of that stuff. So I'm not just like sitting around all day. So it's quite a journey even with that. But other than that, it was a very nice day. And Yeah, so it's been quite good. How you guys doing? You doing okay? You had a good weekend? I hope you got, I'm not going to say I hope you got a lot done. I hope you, most of importantly, if you didn't work, that you did get the rest that you need and all of that. So, hopefully you prioritize that anytime. If you have any time off, make sure you prioritize that. I know I'm learning to do that myself. So, okay, so today, two things we're going to talk about. Today. Big shout out, of course, to everybody that's in the chat. Welcome. So glad that each and every one of you guys are here, from Willie Rivers down to Justice, always in the house. Calculated Crescendo, always in the house. CTO Drumps, always in the house. Really appreciate you guys very, very much. And I do mean that from the bottom of my heart. I do mean that. Couple of things, what we're going to talk about today. We're going to spend a little bit of time. I know many of you have heard about, a festival in Nigeria that reportedly is a part of it, involves the assault of women. All right. And that's just putting it nicely. We're going to take a look at that, and we're going to take the approach that we generally take with everything else. We're going to listen to the people who are actually over there and let them explain, let them tell us what's going on over there, because the tweets alone from people who aren't even over there, that's not enough. That should not be enough for you. It's certainly not enough for me. I want to hear what's actually going on from those people over there. And hopefully we can, get to the bottom of this so that we're not running away with some things that aren't really true. And the other thing we're going to look at too is ask the question: do we, as Black Americans, do we have any moral standing on condemnation of this kind of behavior that's going on in another country? And I'm going to flesh that out even more. I mean, of course, any kind of assault on anybody is bad. I mean, it don't even matter. You understand what I'm saying? That goes without saying. It should be called out regardless, right? But are we setting the example of high moral character? When it comes to how we treat our women, how we treat our men, and all of that, are we in a position where we can say, look at our track record and we're leading the way in this? Well, we always going to ask those questions. And just as a side note, I had one person, actually was like going back and forth with me on, especially from the last video, where we actually unpackage these types of topics, and we're holding the mirror to ourselves, and we're pointing out the things that we do need to pay very close attention to. But not only that, how we can fix it. But of course, you have people who come in oftentimes who only hear the one part, and that's enough for them. We always talk about that there are sicknesses and various diseases and viruses that's out there, and allergies. Some of you guys around this time of the year, you are an allergy sufferer. When that pollen starts coming out, you start getting the sneezes and all that kind of stuff, right? But I would propose to you that there is another allergy that's been around for a very long time. And this one doesn't have anything to do with your lungs. It doesn't have anything to do with your breathing or anything like that, but it's more psychological. And I would say this is an allergy to something that's called personal responsibility. That's what it's called. And we got people out here that anytime a conversation comes up where a call is being made that we have to take responsibility for our own actions, that's when you start seeing people coming up with the whataboutisms, or what about white people, or what about this, or what about this group over here, and why you're not talking about them, and it's not all of us, we're not all doing this, all of that, right? And they just immediately get triggered the moment you start saying, hey, listen, let's talk about some of these things that has been tolerated within what we call the Black community, and let's start itemizing these things, and let's make a decision now. Are we going to completely call this stuff out for what it is and completely separate, raise a standard against that? Or are we going to make excuses for it? It reminds me of something that just happened today. It was someone on X that was a Black American. This is a person on X who was already sitting in the seat of judgment for this festival that's going on over in Nigeria and in the Delta community. And we're going to talk about that too. I'll give you a little bit of the history so we kind of get a fuller picture of what's going on over there. But anyway, so I asked this individual, I said, well, which is worse? If we're saying that this is a festival that's centered on rape, if that's the case, then how about we look at the stuff that we have going on over here, where there's a subculture that celebrates murder, right? I didn't say all black people celebrate murder. I did not say that, but there is a subculture that we celebrated. I mean, I went back a few years. I talked about Murder Inc., right? Murder Inc. You remember that whole, you had Ja Rule and some of these other artists that all got together and they formulated a group called Murder Inc. And quickly, the guy that I was talking to said, well, actually, that came from the Jewish and the white gangsters back in the day. They called themselves Murder Inc. And that's where we got it from. He said, if you were to take the time and to listen to the lyrics of a lot of the songs from Murder Inc., I'm not making this up, ladies and gentlemen. This is really what this person was saying. He said, if you were to take the time and to listen to some of the songs from Murder Inc., you would see that most of the songs are about love and relationships. I'm not kidding you. I said, really? And I proceeded to give him a whole list of all of these different songs. And I said, so you're telling me that black folks are so stupid and dumb that we couldn't come up with any other name to describe love and relationships other than something called Murder Inc. That was the best we could do. We couldn't come up with our own name. We had to use that. And then I proceeded to list them all these different songs, that's about revenge and clapping back on folks and all this other stuff. And I said, no, this is something that it's a subculture that tolerates this kind of stuff, this kind of behavior. And what I'm saying is, and that spilled out into the streets. That spilled out. We see the effects of that every day, not just from Murder Inc., but in a lot of the music. It celebrates going after somebody, clapping back on somebody, taking somebody out because you got disrespected. This is the things that we're talking about here. And we're saying, no, we can't protect that. And this guy continued to bring out all of these different excuses saying about white people did this and white people did that. And we had, these are just songs that are just telling our stories. I said, so our stories are only centered around killing each other? And so it's just, so this is what I'm talking about. And I sat back for a moment in silence and I said, this is exactly what I mean. There's this allergic reaction anytime you say, let's step back for a second. Let's look at ourselves in the mirror before we start jumping on a boat and jumping on down on this stuff over here, which is wrong. But let's talk about, are we setting a standard in this area? I mean, we brag about how we, came up with hip hop and all of that stuff, that we're the originators and all that stuff. But okay, we can brag about music and stuff, but why are we not bragging about high moral character? Why are we not bragging about families that are solid? Why are we not bragging about, supporting one another? And like I said, I went to, and some of y'all been following this story. I can't help but not to follow it. I don't even care about this individual. Beyonce's mom, was it Tina Knowles, did the whole thing where she's doing the gumbo. I'm personally not a gumbo fan, only I know it tastes good. I think I've had gumbo once, but I can't. That's bottom feeder food. I'm sorry, it slipped out, but it didn't. I have to say it. I mean, crawfish, shrimp, catfish, whatever, those are literally bottom feeder creatures. They are. I see many of our people eating that stuff and it look good. It looks good. I think I've had crawfish. It was a long time ago. And I ain't gonna lie, I know it's good. I know it tastes good, y'all. I know it. You ain't got to tell me, okay? I wasn't born in the purest driven snow on top of Mount Everest. I used to get down on a lot of stuff, but crawfish, I wasn't, I didn't have that too much growing up, but, sometimes, there were times I would have that. Crab, not really. Shrimp, absolutely. I loved shrimp. But it was one day I was eating shrimp, and all of a sudden I just felt a little gag reflex going on. I think it was like shrimp fried rice or something I had, and that was enough for me. I was like, okay, I didn't even know about the whole bottom feeder thing. I just said, I can't eat this. And it was the same thing. Then I flipped the crab. My mom, Nicole, she tuned me into crab cakes. Oh, so good. Love crab cakes. And look, this is before I knew anything about the fact that many of these crab cakes don't even have crab meat in it. But anyway, but the ones I was eating, I think it had crab meat in it. But again, I was eating it. All of a sudden, I just felt this slight gag reflex. Again, I didn't know anything about what these animals did. I just knew it tastes good. And I had to leave it alone, And so, so goes my journey on, really learning to listen to my body, even at that time. And so, so Tina Knowles, she came out with this, she has her thing down at the Houston rodeo thing that they have down there. And folks jumped all on her about that. I mean, they got all up and down on her about that. And there was a report of one person getting sick, which is not good at all. And now they've completely just taking her down. But someone had a little commentary on it I thought was really interesting. They were talking about how really it wasn't about the food per se. It was really about the personality, and people were just attacking it, and there's a lot of, it was quite interesting how the angle that they brought. And they talked about how you have some people out there, even some people who look like you, sometimes they just don't want to see you make it, And again, that doesn't speak for all Black people. It does not at all. Because like I said, we're living witnesses of the fact that that's not true at all in every case. But you do have people out there who unfortunately think that way. So I thought it was interesting. Like I said, I don't really follow her. I'm not a gumbo person and all of that stuff. So, some things may have been true. Some things may not. I don't know. But it does speak on some things at least. Because, the way people were really going in on her on social media, it was like a feeding frenzy, and it was some of these people, and they didn't even eat it. I was like, how are you commenting on it and you live in Montana? You live in Montana and you commenting on, I got something to say about her gumbo. I'm like, okay, did you eat it? Well, no, it just looked nasty. I'm like, okay, all right, okay. But yeah, you got people out there that are just wild like that, for real. Anyway. But so we're going to talk about that. Then in the second part of the broadcast, we're going to get a little bit more into the details about this thing that we were talking about, melanated science. We're going to get into this. Yes, all, humans for the most part, we are all pretty much the same for the most part, right? But there are some differences that we need to pay very close attention to. There are certain foods that we do not, particularly for us as melanated people, we need to stay far away from. And I've covered this many times before, but we're going to dive into it a little bit more, okay? Specifically, we're going to, in the last broadcast, I talked about salt and dairy, and I'm going to give you the history behind that as to why is it that our bodies, talking about melanated folks, we handle salt our bodies handle salt a little bit differently than, let's say, people from Europe. And same thing goes for dairy, right? And so it doesn't make one body better or less than the other. There's just some history that goes along with that. There's some science that goes along with that. And hopefully you'll find it quite interesting. But most importantly, we're going to give you the solutions and things that we can do to, to steer away from that so that we can do what? We can optimize our bodies, right? Because a lot of these things, when we talk about diet, has a direct impact on a lot of the stuff that you see on social media that makes you and I very upset when we see it. the lack of impulse control, people always getting in fights and people shooting each other over the dumbest things. Well, it's not really a mystery at all, because a lot of times you'll hear people say, I don't know what it is. I think the government's sending a signal and it's beaming into the minds of black. We'll believe all of that, but we won't believe those Frito-Lay that we've been munching on for years. You know what I mean? And the goal of this is, if you got some grandbabies or you got some children in your house, and I know you don't been to Costco or Walmart or whatever, and you got the jumbo bag of them cheese puffs. Well, the goal of this, at the end of the day, hopefully you'll be taking those and throwing it in the trash. I meant to ask my wife, and I know we'll do it. She'll be happy to do it. I would like to one day, you and I and my wife, we take a trip to Sprouts or, one of these marketplaces around here, and we're going to go through each aisle, the food aisle, and we're going to be identifying some of these things that are alternatives that you can include in your diet, for you and your family, So I would love to do that. I would absolutely love to do that. So I'll try to figure out, it'll definitely be next month. We just got to get through this month, but it will definitely be, if we do something like that, it will definitely be next month. And we can get into that. But anyway, let me check some of your comments here. I'm seeing comments here. Someone said drill rap also celebrates murder. Yeah, but you can't mention that. We ain't supposed to talk about that, right? Yeah, same thing. I forgot to mention that to him. We went from Motown Records to Death Row Records. Exactly. But, that's different. That's different, Todd said guilty. Used to eat gumbo and other seafood dishes till I learned that they were the bottom feeders. Yeah, like I said again, you live and learn. You definitely live and learn. I didn't really know either, even then, but I just started noticing some things when I would eat it, and I was like, yeah. So, but it's good though. I ain't gonna sit up here and lie to you, especially if you got relatives in the Baltimore area. Oh, please. Crabs is king over there. Crabs is king. CTO said, I never had gumbo growing up in SDA. Those types of foods were highly discouraged, but later in my adult life, I did eat some shrimp till it made me sick. I think I may have overdone it. Yeah. Years ago, I know in Atlanta, when I was living in Atlanta, I don't even think they're around anymore. It was Captain D's. There was some other places, man. It was like, you get like 50 shrimp for like $10. It was something like that. And I was like, yeah, that stuff ain't even real at that point. The fisherman's feast, they give you all the fish for like $10, $15. That was back then. I was surprised when I went to, I pointed out to Nicole the other day, KFC, I remember back in the day getting that, I grew up part of my childhood was growing up in Philly. It was Geno's before it was KFC for us, right? But it was very similar. I still remember that chicken. My goodness. A little box. I remember my dad used to get that little biscuit, the mashed potatoes and the gravy and the coleslaw and 2 pieces. Hey, wait, sorry. Woo! Wait a minute. What happened? I was taken aback. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm sorry. My apologies. I was taken back. I'm back now. Anyway, that stuff was good. I'm not going to lie to you. It was good. And yeah, so I remember, that, and I'm sure many of you had that in your childhood as well, growing up and getting the chicken, and then like you guys were just sitting around, all of that stuff, right? But the reality is now that we're older and now we could, and now we're being challenged by looking at the ingredients of these things. And that's what we're going to start doing. There you go. That's what I was trying to remember, sis. Yeah, Long John Silver's. I saw it in my mind. I was trying to remember I remember Captain D's. That was one. But yeah, Long John Silver's. That's what I was remembering. Oh, someone said Piccadilly's. Yes, I remember Piccadilly's. Yes. Y'all know. And I'm sorry. I'll still do what's it? What is it? Not it's not. Oh man, what's the round cornball thing? The cornbread thing is slipping my mind right now. Y'all know what I'm talking about. I'll still do those though. Those it's no fish in it, but oh my goodness. What I've been really looking forward to. What I've been it's one thing that I have really have missed is good seafood. Todd, I don't know. Maybe you've run into some good seafood out here. I'm still on a hunt for that. I'm still on a hunt for some good seafood. I had some, we were eating salmon the other day. We're getting into it, y'all, but we were getting into our, I had some frozen salmon the other day. Obviously we cooked it, but hush puppies. Thank y'all. Anyway, let me get back. Sorry, I keep falling back, y'all. I rebuke you in the name. Anyway. Was it? Okay, so y'all got me mixed up now. Okay, so hush puppies or whatever. Anyway, all I'm saying is this. Now we're at the time right now where we got to start thinking about the ingredients of these things and what exactly are they doing to our bodies. And you're going to see the direct connection between some of these things and our attitudes, our outlooks, and all of that stuff. Someone said crawfish patties. Yes, I never had that. But it sounds good. But just because it tastes good don't mean it's good for you. Oh, that's what it was, the salmon. Anyway, frozen salmon. I had it, and I was telling my wife, I said, it tasted kind of funny. Now, we're very careful about the frozen seafood that we get, make sure it's not farm raised and, they got it in the waters of, China somewhere, in North Korea waters, we don't do that. We're very careful with that. But I will say this, even if you do get it and it's like fresh, wild caught or whatever, because sometimes they play with those names too. They'll say hook caught or whatever. They'll say is caught by a fishing hook. They'll all of a sudden they start mixing it up because see, people getting smart now. You know what I'm saying? They'll try to, harvested by an eco farmer or something like that. They'll throw some things around and they have you thinking, it sounds no. Anyway, yeah, they try to test you with that, but either way, trust your body, trust how your body reacts and responds to these foods. I don't care what it says on the package. If you're noticing that your body is acting kind of funny, then you need to leave it alone. Okay, you just go with that because your body will tell you the truth. All right. Anyway, so with that being said, let's get into our story here. And like I told you, we're going to listen to the people that are already over there. Okay. So anyway, so there was a festival that was going on over in Nigeria very recently. And the name of it's called the Ozoro Festival. That's what it's referred to as. And I'm just going to read to you what I'm learning in real time. Okay. I'm not familiar with that culture, but I know how to read. Okay. And I know where to go to when I'm, if I have questions. Okay. So that's what we're going to do. So let me go ahead and bring this up here real quick. And shout out to everybody that's just joining us. Okay. So we'll first look at this and I got a few videos I'm going to play for you so we can learn a little bit more. And as always, let's make up, and then we can, based on that information, we can make up our own minds on where we want to go with that, okay? The Ozoro Festival, often referred to locally as a Ludu Festival or the Oduro Festival. I know I may have butchered that up. Sorry, y'all. Oh, come on, y'all. See, y'all still at the seafood stuff. Yeah, papados. Yes, I did have, there was a sandwich I used to get there. It was a couple of times with my wife. But anyway, steer it back. I got to steer it back. Yes, papados. It used to be off of Windy Hill Road, off of 75 in Georgia. Yeah, I know exactly where it used to be. It's probably not there now. Anyway, traditionally, okay, go back. It says is a traditional fertility and cultural celebration in, I'm not going to even try to pronounce that, community of the Ozoro Kingdom located in Delta State, Nigeria. Traditionally, it is meant to celebrate fertility and agriculture, but in 2026 celebration garnered widespread national outrage, condemnation, and police investigation due to reports of sexual assault and violence against women. Key details about the festival: the original purpose. The Aludu Festival is traditionally viewed as a fertility rite intended to bring blessings specifically to married couples struggling to conceive. The location, it takes place in the, like I said again, I'm not going to try to say that, community of one of the 5 communities that make up the Ozoro Kingdom in Asoko North local government area of Delta State. Traditional practice, they said the tradition reportedly involves a ritualistic, playful dragging of newly married couples with sand poured on them to symbolize fertility. Off the top, I mean, I don't sound anything wrong with that, right? Traditional restrictions. Historically, women were advised to remain indoors during specific times of the ritual to avoid being targeted by chaotic, high-energy celebrations, though this tradition has become heavily criticized. Well, that's really low-key code for, telling the women to stay in because, you got some folks out there that are straight up criminals. And so apparently this has been an ongoing problem based off of that, okay? But the centerpiece of for what we're seeing so far here is that this festival, it was more of a, one of these little fertility kind of things they do, right? And, okay, but it does sound like some other things got in there. Anyway, so here we go. So now that brings us up to March 2026. They said, quote unquote, rape festival allegations. Many, including commentators on social media, dubbed it a rape festival due to the alleged coordinated sexual assault on female residents and students, particularly targeting those unfamiliar with local tradition. Police investigation and arrest. The Delta State Police Command confirmed the incident as disgusting and arrested several people, including community head chief organizer, Chief Omorde Sunday, and the chief priest of Oragudu quarters. Official condemnation, the Delta State Government, Action Aid Nigeria, and the Nigeria Bar Association condemn the actions, clarifying such violent acts are criminal, not legitimate culture. And then finally it says the impact the incident led to widespread fear with many female students of the Delta State University of Science and Technology, or Ozoro, being advised to stay indoors. And then they said the consensus among authorities and rights groups is that the tradition was hijacked by individuals to perpetuate violence and sexual assault, demanding accountability for victims. So I will tell you, looking into this, that's kind of the gist that I'm getting, is that this wasn't necessarily a festival, that was where that stuff was like, let's just say it wasn't really on paper what they would do. However, it does sound like this has been a growing problem based on, what we just read there. And then I'm going to play you some videos of people, kind of telling us what their take is. And these are people who actually live over there, and they could tell us a little bit more. I can't tell you that, these people, every one of these people are Nigerian, but, they are over there, and maybe they can give us some more insight here. Hold on for a second. So I'm going to play this video here. Let's start with this one, and then we'll move to 2 other ones. Okay, so let me go ahead and drop this. Let's take a listen.
A graping festival going on in Nigeria, and questions. 1, where is it happening? It's happening in a state called Delta State in Nigeria, in a community called Ozoro community. 2, who organized this? It actually is a cultural and traditional thing. So it has been going on for years, and the women have accepted it, and they know that every year for 7 days they have a graping festival, and they have to hide, lock themselves up in their houses. 3, that place is a college town, so they have a university in that state, and people who go there from different parts of the country and don't know about this, they fall victims to these things. 4, it has actually been hidden and kept as a secret and was not supposed to blow up like this until there were leaked messages from WhatsApp, and then people put it on Twitter, and then I said I had to spread awareness on TikTok. 5, the only thing that has been done right now is they arrested 4 people that were apparently the organizers of this. That's the community leaders, and the only reason why it is getting any kind of attention is because people are talking about it. If not, nobody will get arrested. None of the men who perpetrated these things have been arrested.
All right, so that's one video there. Let's get to the other one here.
Raping and molesting women is not part of any Nigerian culture or tradition. Let me just put that out there. It is not part of any of our cultures or traditions in Nigeria. Nonetheless, that is exactly what is happening in the Ozoro community in Delta State right now. There is a culture of going out and, do you understand, attached to the Ozoro festival, which was not the original intention. The men of today, or the men of how many years ago, have suddenly decided they want to be going out and raping and assaulting and molesting women in the name of some absurd part of culture. This is not part of our culture. But as I said, nonetheless, it is still happening and we need to be made aware about it. I don't know why I'm not seeing more Nigerian male content creators speaking about this. When women complain that men are, do you guys come and not all men? Yet when something like this happens, the men don't take a firm position to condemn the other men and set themselves aside, say, this is not what we are doing. I'm not seeing any guys talking about this. Do you understand? To the women who have, I apologize, and I'm sincerely sorry to any woman who's experienced anything like this. Please try your best to hold those responsible accountable. Another thing we suffer in Nigeria is that people don't do what they're supposed to do when things like this happen. When something like this happens, it's terrible. But if you are a woman who's been through this, or you know a woman who's been through this, try your best to push and hold everybody accountable. Push it to the highest level. I've just seen a video of the OV of Delta, the king of Delta, seriously lamenting and condemning those in his court about the situation that is happening, saying that many people have been trying to get in contact with him to understand what is happening in his community, and understandably, all eyes are on him because of what is happening. Do you understand? We are all, I'm not in Nigeria, but I've heard about this. Somebody messaged me, somebody commented on one of my videos saying you need to talk about this, so I'm talking about this. Please try and raise awareness if you can, because the situation on ground right now is very dire for women in Nigeria. Do you understand? And this is a culture that we need to change. Ozoro or no Ozoro, there is a culture of violence and just reprehensible behavior towards women in Africa that we need to change. South Africa had their own movement going on last year. The purple picture is still very much a thing. We need to end violence against women in Nigeria. We need to end violence against women in Africa. Do you understand?
And he's very right on that, very correct on that. There is a subculture, if you will, of violence, of constant violence towards women throughout the continent of Africa. He mentioned South Africa. I was just thinking that while he was talking. South Africa, it's really, really something. It's really, really something. It's a topic that's been talked about and discussed for many, many years, but I don't know if the needle's even being moved on that. But it's a big problem in many parts of the continent of Africa. Now, notice that I say that all Africans are doing this? No, but it is a serious issue on the continent. And so I'm glad he mentioned that. Let's move on. Here's another video here of a woman, and she is giving her take on it as well. Let's take a listen to her, and she's actually coming from, she's bringing a different perspective on this, a little bit different, but I want you to hear what she has to say on this too.
There's nothing like a rape festival. Let's not do that. There's nothing like a rape festival. What there is the Opote festival in the southern part of Nigeria, Delta State, Ozoro community to be precise. And this festival is usually for, you know how festivals get honoring elders, ancestors, community bonding. There may be rituals, Festivals is a cultural heritage, is a cultural interpretation, a cultural display. What happened yesterday is a group of hooligans, criminals, lowlifes, people majoring on nudity that hijacked the culture of the Deltans and degraded it to series of criminal acts. I'm not a Deltan, but oh, I love clarity. I love clarity. So if with the occurrence of what has happened yesterday, I want people to understand that it's not in the tradition of the Deltans to rape their women when they come out in a way to disobey the culture. That's just what I want us to understand. Now, as to the people that committed this act, I mean, where are the days when people are criminals were fed to lions? Let's feed animals to animals. Because you cannot tell me, I saw the videos. You cannot tell me that you would grab a lady off a motorcycle and rape her, tear her clothes off her because she came out in. That's not a festival. Everybody that stood and watched should be arrested. The rapists themselves should have their genitals connected to a moving vehicle and dragged to pieces. The people that defended the rapist should be flogged till they bleed the last drop of their blood. Because you cannot in recent times, or maybe they should be subjected to the same rape, Get the people that raped these ladies to rape these men that are doing this nonsense, apologizing and saying that, oh, but it's a tradition. It's a lie. It's not tradition. You are a wicked person supporting wicked acts. I don't know what the security outfit is doing in Delta State. I'm hearing that 4 persons have been arrested. Are you saying 4? The videos I saw, it was a plethora of people, of men, constituting mayhem, raining down chaos on women. And you say 4 persons have been arrested? Let's do better.
Well, I mean, anyway, so there you go. So what are your thoughts on that? On what these people are saying there. They're over there. And, just keep all of that in mind there. So for what I'm gathering, again, it sounds like it's, a festival that it could get wild, but it sounds like even in that, it sounded like there were already some backdoors or some activity that was going on. And from what I'm gathering too, it sounds like the only reason why this is getting out there is because of the fact that, and I heard this from other places like on X or whatever, different Nigerians that were saying that, alleging that this is like the first year where they opened this festival up to outsiders. And so outsiders saw this stuff and they, getting on WhatsApp or whatever, and it's gone all over the world and all of that. And I was also reading some of the comments from what it appeared to be Nigerians who were saying that, well, these women, they should, next time you need to stay your behinds in the house. They were taking that perspective. And I'm like, what? What? But yeah, and so, yeah, it's, so just across the board, period. I think you and I, we can conclude that this is terrible. It's awful, right? That how, something like this would be, considered part of a festival. It would be something that's included in a festival there. But, so the next question is that, are we as Black Americans, are we setting an example of moral character in, when it comes to, providing in a festive environment? Are we setting a moral standard in that? I'm not saying that we can't say anything. I'm just simply saying that while you're talking about this that's going on over there, it's okay to flip the camera on us and ask the question, well, are we setting the example? Are we setting a high moral example? And I'll just read off to you just a few examples here. Now, these aren't centered around rape, but it is centered around people dying, right? People that are getting murdered. I'll just read off to you some of them, okay? And these are very recent things. And these are all took place at Juneteenth festivals, okay? So this is a Juneteenth festival back in 2025. Hold on, back up. Yeah, 2025 in Tulsa, out of all places. A shooting erupted in the historic Greenwood district during the annual Juneteenth festival in Greenwood. Yeah, Greenwood. Black Wall Street. They had a Juneteenth festival in Greenwood. I would think that's like hallowed ground. But somebody figured that it wouldn't be complete until you bring a gun. A 22-year-old man was killed and 7 others were injured by gunfire. Anderson County Juneteenth celebration in Anderson, South Carolina, June 2025. This is last year as well. A gunfire broke out during a large gathering at the county's 6th annual Juneteenth celebration. 1 woman was killed and 9 others people were wounded. At the Round Rock Juneteenth Festival in Texas, 2024, an altercation between 2 groups at Old Settlers Park escalated to a shooting during a free community concert. 2 innocent bystanders, a woman aged 33 and 54, were killed and 14 others were injured. Como Fest in Fort Worth, this is in 2023. Shots were fired in a crowd of hundreds just hours after the end of the annual Independence Day celebration in the historically black Como neighborhood. 3 people were killed and 8 others were wounded. Willowbrook Juneteenth celebration in Willowbrook, Illinois in 2023. A peaceful gathering in the suburban Chicago parking lot turned violent when multiple weapons were fired into a crowd of hundreds. 1 person was killed and 22 others were wounded. Well, it's not just in Juneteenth festivals, but it's also in MLK festivals as well. And we'll go through this very quickly. In Milwaukee, MLK shootings, January 2026, a series of shootings occurred across the city on the holiday, including one that fatally wounded a teenager. A 16-year-old was killed at the scene there, and then they give the location. Fort Pierce MLK Family Fun Day in Fort Pierce, Florida, 2023. Gunfire erupted at a local park during a car show and festival following the city's MLK parade. The shooting stemmed from a disagreement between 2 parties. A 29-year-old mother was killed while shielding her daughter from bullets. 7 others were wounded by gunfire and 4 were injured while fleeing. San Antonio, and the list goes on. I have the rest of the list here, but I don't need to read. I think you guys get the point. So this kind of stuff happens literally every time there is, at some point and somewhere in the country, there is going to be, if we know that this is going to be some kind of festival, if you will, and it's going to be mostly black folks, we know that there is a very high probability that somebody going to fight or somebody going to get shot. It does not happen at every black festival. Okay, so before the usual suspects come in here and think I'm saying all black people are doing this, that is not true. But you and I both know, if we're honest enough, that this stuff does happen quite often when there's too many of us in the room. We know this, right? And so all I'm simply saying is, if this is something that happens on the regular, all I'm simply asking is, you know, we can take pride, it's easily to be very prideful in a good way about how all these different genres of music that we've developed, our own style, our own this and that or whatever. But why is it that we don't brag about, our good character, or learning how to have self-control, learning how to de-escalate things? We should be leaders in de-escalating situations and not, suffering from the lack of impulse, impulse control. We should be leaders in that. And why would people get angry with me even suggesting that? Again, it's back to what I told you. It's an allergic reaction to just taking responsibility on these things. So we have a choice, and there are things that we can do to fix that, which leads us now into the second part of our broadcast, where we're going to look just at that, the connection between our diets and all of that. And as I said before, again, I'm not saying that diets are the silver bullet. They're not, okay? Because there are a lot of other factors that contribute to people with these types of behaviors, right? We could talk about the obvious ones when the parents aren't together, right? When it's a single parent at home, financial, economic, there are certain things that do contribute to children growing up with these accepted bad behaviors. Music, that's another thing, of course. It's things like that. So we can't fix those things here on this platform. I can't simply get up here and scream and yell and say, you need to get these homes back together. You need to get back with that man. You need to get back with that woman. I'm not going to tell you that, because for some people, that is not a solution. In fact, it will probably make it worse. So we can't fix that. And I'm also wanting to speak to you as parents and adult and grandparents who have children that are older. Listen, there are many of you who have done the right thing by, if there were mistakes that were made, and we as parents, we do all make our mistakes, right? But you did the right thing in saying, listen, children, and by acknowledging, hey, I may have messed up here, there, whatever. And and so that's a good start. But what happens as parents, sometimes we look at our adult children and, if they're still making bad choices, sometimes we still try to tie that to ourselves and say, see, they learned that from me. They learned that from me. They learned that from me. No, I mean, okay, you may have the fact that you came out to them and said, listen, I used to do this, whatever this is, but I am telling you now that I'm older, that was wrong. That breaks you free from the responsibility of that. Okay, so don't carry that. All right, that breaks you free from that. So, but now it's up to the children, when I'm talking adult children now, for them to start making these choices for themselves. Now it's in their court. You've done your part. You understand what I'm saying? I want to be very clear with that. So you may not be able to go back in time and, for example, and say, let's say if it's a situation where you and your husband or you and your wife parted ways. Let's just say if it's a situation like that. You can't go back in time and fix that. It's done. It's over with, right? So what's left behind? What's left behind are some of these other things that they can address in their lives, like their diet, things that they're doing, things that they're taking in. You know how people say misery loves company? Well, why is it that some of these children, grown children, they have this proclivity to always love being entertained by misery, or being around very miserable people and making very bad choices and things like that? Those are things that, again, they as adults have to make the better choices. And you as a parent, you can help them by providing them some better alternatives, some solutions, right? And so that's what we're doing here. We're going to point out some things, that information you can pass on to them that will make a world of difference in them, in their choices in life and all of that. But again, as individuals, it's up to them. It's their choice. It's their decision ultimately. Okay. So that's what we're here for, to help you, to equip you with that kind of information. So that's what we're going to do. She said, guilt parenting is a very real thing. It is. It is. And a very good point. Okay. So let me get out of some of these things here, and we're going to jump right into it. And for those that are just joining, as always, welcome. So glad that you're here. Let's get to my thing here. Let's see. Okay, so yes, I'm going to be pulling from ChatGPT here, but these are things I've already done videos on this stuff, and I just pulled this up again, I just wanted to can you just make it easier, because that way they can really see it and all of that. And then, and so that's what I'm doing right now. So let me, so that's what we're going to do. I'm going to bring this stuff on the screen here, and we're going to take a look at this. So just from the top again, as I've said many times before, at the end of the day, black people, white people, Asian people, Hispanic, whatever, we're humans, right? We're humans. But there are certain things within our body and our makeup that makes us different, slightly different. There are certain things that we can eat that other people can, and vice versa. It doesn't make one better and one worse. It just simply, that's what it is. And our bodies, because of those slight differences, we have to look at our bodies like we would look at the difference between a BMW and, a Ford truck, F-150. The way the maintenance plan of an F-150 is going to be different than a Mercedes. You understand what I'm saying? One vehicle isn't better than the other. There's some slight differences. So when we look at our bodies, the physiology of our bodies, we have to take that in consideration, right? So one of the things I remember, I think it was last year, maybe it was last year. I think it was last year. We talked about our wide noses. Those of us who tend to have wider noses, that have the melanin that we have in our skin, and we have these wide noses. Well, when that came from many, many, many years of, just this, what they say is evolution or whatever. And just over time, our ancestors, they had wider noses. Why? Because in the climate that they were in, there was a lot of humidity. All right. And the humidity, what happens, I think what it is that the people who have narrow noses, the reason why they have narrow noses, I'm trying to remember the difference between the two. I think it was the narrow noses. What happens is when the oxygen comes in, as it's traveling up, it actually warms up, because, breathing in cold air for a long period of time isn't really good for you. It really isn't. And so what happens is those narrow noses, as the oxygen was coming in, it gives the body time to warm up the air. So by the time it gets to your lungs and all of that, it's at a temperature where your body's like, okay, I can work with this. And this is, we can do something with this, right? And so that happened because, again, they lived in a much colder environment, so their bodies adjusted to that. And you're talking a process that takes literally thousands and thousands and thousands of years. It's not something where it happens overnight, okay? So when you look at our ancestors in Africa, for example, where we're in a very humid environment, the atmosphere is already humid or warm, so we didn't really need that warming up of the air. So, so that's why our noses are wider, so that we can take in more air, and it's warm and it goes in and all of that. Probably not the best, it's kind of choppy how I'm explaining it, but that's basically the gist of just an example when I'm talking about how our bodies are they're not, one isn't better than the other. They're just some differences. And so what I was saying, I think last year in that video, I was saying why it's so important for us, particularly those of us that have noses like I do, to make sure that you have humidity in your house, a certain level of humidity in your house. And we pointed to having a humidifier running, right? That's one thing. The other thing, we talked about the importance for us having certain plants. There are certain plants, house plants, that actually release oxygen in the air at night while you're sleeping. That's where you really need it, because your breathing is actually slowed down. So having that oxygen coming in at night, that is perfect, right? And it's especially important for those of us that live in these drier climates like I do here in Arizona. We have to have these plants and stuff in our houses so that we're getting that. You know what I mean? It's very critical for us in our makeup to have that humidity going on. So, and that's just regardless of where you live, we need to have a certain level of humidity, because some of these, like for example, your air conditioning unit, it's sometimes what it'll do is draw out that humidity, right? And so you just need to make sure having those plants and stuff in that house, or I should say the heater sometimes will draw out that humidity, and you don't want to do that. That's why for some of you during the winter months, you notice how that one nostril gets really dry and it's like painful to breathe sometime, in your nostril because you get that little dry spot. It's because there's not enough humidity in your air. You know what I mean? So you go from the house to the car, you got your heat turned up and all of that. All of that humidity is being pushed out. You don't need that. Okay, so we need, as a people, we definitely need to have some humidity going on in our lives. So that's just one example there. All right, so let me go ahead and pull this up on the screen here, and let's get down to some melanated science. All right, so this is the first level of it here on some of the things here that we need to pay very close attention to. All right, so here we go. So, because this is going to be layer 1, and then I'm going to jump into layer 2 in a moment. All right, so let's go. Here's some things, I focus on Frito-Lay snacks. And the reason why I did that is because when you go into, again, I'm not saying we all do this. All black folks don't do this. But there are numbers of us, unfortunately, for various reasons, if you live in certain communities where it's not where what they would call food deserts, right? Where young people, particularly our young people, they will tend to get their snacks and stuff from the corner store. Frito-Lay is very present in these stores, and we need to start paying attention to those things that they're putting in there because they're very dangerous to our health over the long run. So these are things that some of these things we already know. So this is just going to be the first layer, easy part, I think. But I'm going to get into it in a deeper level in a moment here. Okay. Excess sodium, salt, where it shows up, all chips, Lay's, Doritos, Cheetos, Fritos. What it does, it pulls water out of the cells, dehydration. It strains blood vessels, blood pressure, stress, can interfere with potassium balance. Why is this worth highlighting? Many people, especially in hot, dry places like Phoenix, are already borderline dehydrated, and this makes it worse. Well, I'm in Phoenix, right? But you may not be. But regardless of that, many people across the board do suffer from a certain level of dehydration. We're not getting enough water. You need water. You need moisture in your life. Okay, I just beat that to the ground already. Maltodextrin and refined carbohydrates. Where does this show up again? In Doritos, Cheetos, and flavored chips. Oh, Lord, that means barbecue chips. We're going to leave barbecue chips alone because that's different. Okay, barbecue chips, that is, we're going to leave that alone because that's getting too close. I'm too sensitive to that. No, believe it or not, there's alternatives to that. And that's, like I said, I want to do a future video on that. But anyway, let's go. What does it do? It spikes blood sugar faster than table sugar. All right. So anytime you see this maltodextrin, what it does, it spikes blood sugar faster than table sugar. That's very dangerous. It creates a crash, craving, and repeat cycle. And then it stresses insulin response. All right. They said, why does it matter? They said, if your audience is already dealing with energy swings, cravings, or metabolic stress, this is gasoline on the fire. So when you get your products, whatever it is, you want to make sure if you see this, try to steer clear from it. And listen, y'all, everything I'm going through here, I'm not going to sit up here and act like it's very easy to avoid these things. It really isn't, because they put it in everything. You know what I'm saying? That's very true. But, but there are things that we can do to reduce it. That's the point. Well, of course, many of you know artificial flavor enhancers, MSG, the sodium incinate, guanylate. Hope I'm saying that right. MSG, where do you see MSG in? Well, we're talking about these snacks, but you'll also see this in many Asian restaurants. So if you like getting that Chinese food, Asian foods, a lot of times out here, we're big on Thai food out here. I love pho. It ain't pho. I tell myself that all the time because it's spelled PHO. And sometimes I say, I want some pho. Well, maybe they'll think I'm from the South. So, but it's pronounced pho anyway. But I love pho. Oh my God. Oh my God. If you never have pho, oh my goodness. If you like soup, that's it, baby. That is it. Basically, and you don't even have to they put in, I get it. When I do get it, they put, what I get? Sirloin beef in there. And they put like, let's see what else is in there. There's veggies for sure, like onions. They put the, it's like stir fry veggies and all that in there. It's, oh my God. I mean, oh my goodness. That stuff is good. Well, anyway, I asked them a question. And we asked right at the bit, because we said, okay, well, what, do you guys put MSG in there? And they said, yes. And I was like, wonk, wonk. So MSG is a flavor enhancer, So again, a lot of Asian restaurants, they use this a lot. You can ask them to see if they can leave that out. Some restaurants will leave it out if you but you got to ask them that. But yeah, in some Asian restaurants I've come across, they actually have a policy where they don't even cook with it at all. So that's good. So what you can do, what I would advise if you like Asian foods, like I'm the Asian foods for me, I love Thai food. Thai food is it for me. I love Thai food. Chinese food, Thai food not Thai food. I mean Chinese food. There's I can go a little ways with that, a little ways. Korean, Japanese food. I need a guide for that because I've been striking out with some of their stuff sometimes. I just need a guide. I remember Nicole, she said, I just want to try something different. We're going to go to a Korean restaurant. Ooh, that garlic hit me something else. I couldn't do it. Anyway, let's go. So MSG, of course, it also shows up in these snacks like Doritos, Cheetos, Ruffles, flavored snacks. What does it do? It overstimulates taste receptors, makes food hard to stop eating. We should never, ever have something in our mouths we just keep eating it all the time. We just keep eating it over and over again. And so if that's an addiction. That's leading up to an addiction. Can affect neurotransmitter signaling in sensitive individuals. You don't want anything at all disrupting your neurotransmitter signaling, like your body, your brain, and how it communicates to your body. You don't want that. A food should not do that. And what this MSG thing does, it actually switches off what they call your I'm full signal. You know how you can be eating a bag of chips, for example, and you're like, I'm just going to have a few of them. And then next thing you know, the bag is almost done. Well, part of it is because these people, they put so much freaking air in the bag and make you think you're getting a full bag, but you open that thing up, half the bag is already gone. So that's number one. But the other part too is, you just keep eating. And your body's trying to tell you, hey, listen, enough, we're full. But that MSG keeps, telling you, nah, don't do it. Nope, just keep feeding yourself. Highly processed corn and vegetable oils. Where does it show up? And again, in these different chips like the Fritos, Doritos, Cheetos, Tostitos, and all of that. Or like my mom would say if she's listening, right? Tostados. I was like, wow, where are you getting that from? Anyway, typical oils: corn oil, soybean oil, sunflower oil. Again, I know and I understand that especially if you're eating out, it's very difficult. Or if you get frozen food, sometimes they put this stuff in there, so it's hard. High in omega-6 fatty acids can push the body towards inflammatory states when overconsumed. So if you notice that sometimes you're like, man, why is my stomach blown out like this? What did I eat? Well, take a look at your, what you've been eating lately. I've shared this story many times before, and I'll share it again. My wife and I, we went to a small restaurant down in Phoenix, and it was a Mexican lady, and her restaurant, she, the reason why we went there is because she said they don't put, they don't use seed oils or something like that, right? We were like, nah, we're gonna leave that alone, right? But then that's what she said. I wanted a restaurant, Mexican food, which we love, and we're not going to cook with seed oil. So we was like, okay, let's check it out. We went down there, whatever, and I told you. And like I said, I've shared this story many times before, but long story short, I ended up asking her, the Mexican restaurants in this area, let's just focus on the Phoenix area. I said, what oil do they use? What oil do they use to, when they're cooking? And she said that it's basically like a processed oil. Basically, what happens is Mexican restaurant A will cook all day with this oil, right? And at the end of the day, they'll change the oil like all restaurants do. They'll put it in a container or whatever, and it's used oil, right? Well, you think, okay, they'll take it somewhere and dump it. No, they'll take that oil and they'll process it locally, clean it out, filter it out, and once it's clean, they'll take it into the next restaurant and do it all over again. Recook with that same oil over and over again. Folks, you shouldn't be doing that with oil. Once you've used it, it's done. You just need to throw that thing out. But when you're using oils like this over and over again, it's literally like you're cooking with liquid plastic. That's what you're doing. All right. So you don't want, so when you go to particularly these, like I'm saying, like Mexican restaurants, and I would even say some Indian restaurants, some of these internationals, and I ain't slamming on y'all. I ain't slamming on the international people and all that, but I do know that their cooking standards, are something that we need to pay attention to. That's all I'm saying. You got to pay attention to these things. Your body may have gotten adapted to it, but I'm tired of going to some places and my stomach just bubbling over and I'm wondering why I can't, what's going on, and I got to hire the whole Scooby-Doo van to investigate what the heck happened, and it comes to find out I was eating this crap because this stuff had in it. Okay. Artificial colors, red dye 40, yellow 5, yellow 6. Where does it show up? And Cheetos, Doritos. Okay. Same products linked in some studies to behavior effects in children. Adds chemical load with no nutritional value. So when you're eating things like Cheetos, Doritos, and all of that, and it looks, it looks yellow because there's cheese in it. That ain't cheese. That's a dye. But what is it doing? It's literally changing the behaviors in our children if they're eating too much of this stuff. So again, grandma, auntie, uncle, I know you want to have some snacks when they come home from school or whatever. Just go in there and get your snacks. Or go in there, after school, you get them something real quick. Just know if you keep giving them this stuff and then you later on you screaming at them, why they acting so crazy? These kids are crazy these days. Well, look at what you're giving them. Artificial cheese and flavor powders. Often contains processed dairy derivatives and additives. And like I said, again, we're going to get in a little deeper here in a moment. Can contribute to digestive discomfort in some people. Again, you know how Dr. Sebi said everything begins in the gut? All disease begins in the gut. That's a point that I want to make sure that you do not let go of. Don't let go of that. Because when your gut environment is jacked up, if it's imbalanced, it has a direct impact on your attitude, your outlook, everything. It has a direct impact on these things. And these food manufacturers like Frito-Lay, they don't care. They literally do not care at all. And they're going to keep putting these things in there because they want you to keep eating. So anyway, so that's that. Now let's move in a little bit deeper here. And I do want to, let me bring out something here. Hold on a second. Because I'll just put this on the screen here as soon as I can. Hold on. While we're talking here, hold on for a sec. We're actually halfway through here, and let me just put this on there. I'll put that there in the corner there. So we do have solutions here. All right. So those salts. When you hear us talking about salt, and I know I look a little darker because the screen, the light's going dim there on that or whatever. But anyway, so when we're talking about salt in this section here, we're not saying that all salts are bad, because all salts aren't bad. What we're referring to are refined salts, okay? Refined salts. And that's like the table salt that you usually see in restaurants. So that's what we're referring to, all right? So anyway, let me get back here and let's get this up here, what I was talking about. Okay, the difference here. Okay, so I'm going to read something to you, and we're going to talk about salt, and then we're going to talk about dairy. All right. So I want you to take a listen to this. Okay. Okay. So people descended from West and Central African populations are not automatically fragile. This is the point I keep making. And this is not true of every individual, but at the population level, there are some biologically meaningful patterns that show up often enough to matter. With salt, the strongest evidence points to the difference in kidney sodium handling, blood pressure regulation, and potassium balance. With lactose, the strongest evidence points to gene culture history. In most human populations, adults naturally reduce lactase production after weaning. This is actually okay, I'll just keep going. Okay, so let me go back again. With lactose, the strongest evidence points to gene culture history. In most human populations, adults naturally reduce lactase production after weaning. But in many European populations, mutations keep lactase turned on into adulthood became common because dairying created a survival advantage. Okay? All right, so we're getting into salt. All right. So then we're going to get back into that dairy part there. The key why salt can hit many people of West and Central African ancestry. The key issue is salt sensitivity. Salt sensitivity does not mean salt is bad for one group or harmless for another. It means that for some people, when sodium intake rises, blood pressure rises more sharply than it does in other people. Reviews consistently report that salt-sensitive blood pressure is more common in African ancestry populations than in European ancestry populations. All right? Let's go on. Number one, the kidneys tend to hold on to sodium more readily in many salt-sensitive people. Your kidneys decide how much sodium to keep and how much to dump into urine. In salt-sensitive individuals, the kidneys tend to reabsorb more sodium, which pulls more water back into the bloodstream. More sodium retained means more fluid retained, and more fluid retained can mean higher blood pressure. Researchers discuss several mechanisms here, including differences in the, let me try to say this, renin-angiotensin aldosterone system. If I said that right. Kidney tubulin, sodium transport, and other pathways involved in sodium excretion. Number two, low renin hypertension patterns are more common. Many African ancestry patients with hypertension show a pattern sometimes called low renin hypertension. Renin is part of the hormonal system that helps regulate blood pressure and sodium balance. In these patterns, the body may not respond to sodium loads in the same way seen in many European populations. And at the end result can mean more volume expansion and a stronger blood pressure response to salt. All right, number 3, potassium matters a lot here. This part gets overlooked. A traditional diet in many tropical settings are often high in potassium-rich plant foods and relatively low in processed sodium. Potassium helps with body excrete sodium and relaxes blood vessel walls. When people move from that kind of dietary pattern to a modern processed food pattern that is high sodium and low potassium, the blood pressure effect can get worse. This is one reason processed chips, cured foods, and fast foods can be such a bad combination. Okay, so let me get my thing up here. So you hear that. So again, it's not that our bodies are weaker than other bodies. It's just, it has something to do, and they're going to theorize a little bit later on as to why it is that our kidneys respond like this as opposed to Europeans. But the fact of the matter is that this is why for us, when it comes to processed salt, I'm not saying natural salts like the sea salts, like the salts we sell, wink, wink, at Samba Tree, you know, the lava salt, the Aliyah salt. Those salts are natural. They're not processed. Those are good salts for your body. You still got to take them within reason, but those are natural salts. I'm talking more of the table salts that you see, the Morton's girl with the rain jacket on. No, that don't need to be up in your house. And the same can be said with processed sugars. You don't need to have that. Okay. And I know sometimes they play around with the names too. So you got to be careful with that. All right. So you always want to lean more into, if it has color in it, that means that's probably, it has nutrients in there. It has potassium. It has all these things that our bodies need. Okay. Because again, we're going back to, if you go with this processed stuff, it has a direct impact on your behavior and how you think and how you react to certain things. You know, why depression, one of the biggest reasons why depression is so rampant amongst our people, a lot of it stems from how we eat. When you're depressed, what do? I'm going to get me a salad. No, typically when you're depressed, a lot of times, where do we lean to? I'm going to get me a bag of chips. I'm going to get me some salty. I'm going to get something sweet. That's a lot of times you will tend to go that way. And then what does it do? It keeps you more depressed. You understand what I'm saying? Again, what we're doing here is we're breaking these bad habits here. All right. So let me move on here and bring this back on the screen. Oh, actually, let me read this here. Okay, so here we go. So they said you will hear a common explanation that ancestors in hot climates with heavy sweating and limited access to salt would benefit from bodies that conserve sodium efficiently. That idea is biologically plausible, and versions of it have been discussed for years. But the honest scientific answer is that this is not fully settled. Recent reviews say that disparity is real, but the exact mix of genetics, genetics, diet, stress, obesity, and social environment remains uncertain. So the safe claim is not that West Africans evolved to be damaged by salt. The safe claim is many African ancestry populations show higher salt sensitivity today, and processed high sodium diets can expose that vulnerability. Okay. So those are things so keep that in mind about salt. So for those of us, again, us high melanated people, where most of us we trace our roots to West and Central Africa, we have to keep that in mind. When it comes to processed salts, we can't do that. Okay, we got to stay away from that. All right, because that has a direct impact on behavior and how we see and think and process things. Okay. All right. So now let's talk very quickly on the dairy part, which I found very interesting as well. Why lactose intolerance is more common outside Europe, including much of West and Central Africa. The number one, the human default is to lose lactase after childhood. Lactase is the enzyme that breaks down lactose, the sugar in milk. In most mammals, including most humans, historically, lactase production drops after weaning. So the ancestral human pattern is lactase non-persistence. In plain English, for most human populations, adults were not built to drink a lot of fresh milk. Adults, this is across the board. So we weren't designed, our bodies, the way our bodies are designed, we're not designed to drink milk all the time. This is across the board, regardless of you're white, black, or whatever, it doesn't matter. We're not supposed to do that. So that milk that you get from your mom, that's for you to get your running start as a baby. And once you start growing up a little bit, now you don't need that anymore. It naturally weans itself down where you don't need it anymore. But check this out. Let's get into it. Why is it still persisting? Okay, Europe developed strong selection for lactase persistence. In many European populations, dairying became important enough that adults who kept digesting milk had an advantage. Over time, gene variants near the LCT gene spread because they kept lactase production active into adulthood. One of the best known European variants is the 13910 T allele. I hope I'm saying that right. This is a classic example of gene culture co-evolution. The culture changed first by herding and milking animals. Then biology followed through natural selection. So Europeans, in their culture, they kept it going. Something that should have been attenuated in childhood, well, they kept it going. And so that's why in Europeans, they can, they kept drinking milk. And so over thousands of years, their bodies adjusted to that. Okay? So that's why Europeans in their culture, they can drink milk and it's okay, because you're talking over thousands of years, their bodies just naturally adjusted to that dairying culture, right? All right. So it's very important to point out, as it's getting ready to get to Africa here, Africa is not a monolith. We already know this. There's different cultures and all of that. And it's important to point that out because there are some cultures in Africa that are dairying cultures. They do drink milk, but there are other cultures that do not. All right. So we're just going to be clear with that. All right. So let's go ahead and read this. They said this is very important. It is wrong to say Africans are lactose intolerant, as if the whole continent is the same. Some African pastoralist populations also evolved lactose persistence, but often through different genetic variants than Europeans. This is one of the big findings of the Tiscoff work. Lactase persistence arose more than once in human history. So some African groups that historically depended on cattle and milk can digest lactose quite well, while many West and Central African populations with less dairying traditions show much higher lactase non-persistence. This is why they say, again, many of us our ancestors came from West and Central Africa because the dairying culture was very low. There are other places in Africa where they did do the dairying thing, but not so much when you look at West and Central African cultures, right? Why is it a bigger issue in many West and Central African descended populations than in Europeans? Because in many European populations, the keep making lactase mutations became common. In many West and Central African populations, those same European variants are not the main pattern. And in groups without a long dairying history, there was less evolutionary pressure to keep adult lactase switched on. So when adults from those lineages drink regular milk, lactose moves into the colon undigested, where bacteria ferment it. That can produce gas, bloating, cramps, and diarrhea. Now, isn't that something? I may want to read that again. Because you know how some of us, we thought, man, that thing tore me up. Y'all know what I'm talking about. We talk about when we drink that milk, I know that milk tore me up. Oh, I can't have that ice cream, man. I'll be on the toilet all night. That thing tore me up. Had me clinging to that toilet. Well, let's read that again because I want to make sure you understand this, okay? All right. Because in many European populations, to keep making lactose mutations became common. In many West and Central African populations, those same European variants are not the main pattern. And in groups without a long dairying history, there was less evolutionary pressure to keep adult lactase switched on. So when adults from those lineages drink regular milk, lactose moves into the colon undigested, where bacteria ferment it and can produce gas, bloating, cramps, and diarrhea. So again, Europeans are not better. They're just more likely to carry the persistent trait. And so let's see what else here. So there you go. So there you go with that. Let me see if there was something else on that. Those are the two main things that I wanted to share on that, the details on that. So I'll put on the screen here too as well. Give me just a moment here, and we're going to bring this to a close here. Really appreciate you guys hanging in there. As always, really appreciate that. Let me get something else here on the screen here. Hold on for just a sec. Just always putting our plug in there. Oh man, that thing didn't do what I told it to do, and then make it transparent. Okay, I'll just put it right there. All right, I'll just put it right there. Man, when I tell you guys over at Samba Tree, we have something called 8-herb multi-vitamin and mineral brew. If you're someone that likes, I'm not going to say it's Tahitian treat. It ain't like that, y'all. It ain't like that. But it's, if you like fruit juice, you know, like a punch thing, you're going to love that. So make sure you check that out. Again, that's over at sambatree.com. You're definitely going to like that a whole lot. It is very good. That's a good option to have when it comes to this stuff. I also pointed out the natural salts that we offer as well. Not only that, we also have the, you know, I told you we have brought back the, just for a limited time up until the end of the month, we brought this back as well. Let me bring this up on the screen as well. The fruit juices are back. These are 100% juices. In other words, there's no added colors. There's no added flavors. There's none of that. So you're getting 100% mango, 100% soursop juice. If you're looking for soursop juice, this is it. It's real soursop juice. And guess what? They put soursop bits in it. All right. Just like there's mango bits in there, just like there's guava bits in there, just like there's coconut bits in the coconut water. So if you're someone that really likes fruit juice and you want, this is an option here for you, make sure you check that out. Okay. Make sure you check that out. Let me get out of here. And then I do want to share one other video of my dear, precious, beautiful wife that she shared over on Samba Tree recently. On our Samba Tree YouTube page. On our Samba Tree YouTube page. Something else that we try to incorporate here, and that's breathing exercises. So I'll play that just in a moment, but I just want to make sure you guys understand as we're closing this up. Yes, there are numbers of problems that are going on amongst our people, be it black folks here in the United States, black folks abroad, whatever. And there are a myriad of things that we can point to. But what we do need to focus on is the things that we intake, the things we put in our bodies. And that I can tell you personally, the changes that my family has made over the years, it has made a world of difference. This stuff that we getting ourselves out of, just this recent stuff that's happened all in the month of March for us here. I'm going to tell you right now, I was just thinking today, I said, man, if our diets were any different, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't know if we would have made it. I'm serious. It was really that bad. And so it's really important for you to take these things very seriously and don't brush them off. Let me get over here on YouTube and let me play this video from my wife here. Just give me just a moment here. What are they doing? I'll do Samba Tree. Played it. It's a very, very short video, y'all. Very short video that she did. Here Here it is. Let me just switch over here to this right here. Check this out. And this is stuff that we are daily incorporating in our lives. I was doing my breathing exercise today. If you're not a subscriber to our Sobertree YouTube page, make sure you do so. Let's head on over to the shorts here. This is the video that she did. Let's take a look here. Make sure you guys are incorporating things like this in your life every day. Take a look.
When life feels crazy, busy, or loud, your body needs a deep breath break to relax the mind, calm the nervous system, and quiet the noise of life. So find your favorite quiet place, shut out all the distracting thoughts, and settle in. Unclench your jaw, drop your shoulders, and let your breath slow down. Let's take one practice breath together. Breathe in, fill the belly, fill the chest, up to the head, and exhale. Good. Three deep breaths. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Now, breathe in and hold. Release. And hold. Breathe in and hold. Release. And hold. Last breath, breathe in and release. Well done. That was your deep breath break. Come back to this space anytime you need to. When life feels crazy.
All right. So that's the kind of stuff that we're talking about here. And we're going to be putting out a lot more content like that, really trying to get our people, get folks, centered on that inner peace. You're just really training your nervous system to get to reset. And that's how you should start your day. That's also a great way to end your day as well. Also doing your lunch breaks as well. See, these are real solutions. You want solutions? These are real solutions. And you're not going to find it just by, reading a book and all that. Those things help. But what we covered today in this broadcast here is just really going through just some of the ingredients that you will find in these very popular foods and snacks, that we have consumed ourselves, that we've given to our children and our grandchildren. And again, as older people, we sit back and we scratch our heads and wonder why these kids are crazy. Why are they acting crazy? Why are they going off? Well, look no further than the stuff that we have been feeding them. Now, these, companies and all of that, at the end of the day, they're about themselves. They are the culprit by putting these things in. They do not care. They do not care about you. They don't care about me. They put in whatever it is that's going to continue to sell. Okay? So we have to take the initiative and be a lot smarter in the things that we put in, because by being more attentive to that, it's going to have a direct impact on how we run our lives and the decisions that we make. Like I said, again, I'm going to talk to Nicole, and I would love one day, that would be if we do that, it would be in April, We'd love to take you guys and we can go right into like a Sprouts store and show you. And the reason why I mentioned Sprouts is because it's a health food store. Their prices, it ain't Whole Foods. You know, you don't need to go to Whole Foods for the options that are out there. That's what we want to show you. And Whole Foods is good, but you know, a lot of us ain't got no Whole Foods money. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, so we're going to make it very practical and very basic and looking at some great alternatives for you and your family. And, you know, if you can't go there, you can always go to sambatree.com. We have alternatives there, natural alternatives there all the time. That's why we say Samba Tree is your natural alternative. So make sure you check that out. Remember, those juices are there for a limited time, but we have plenty of other things there too that are great replacements for a lot of these things that we were just talking about today. So thank you so much as always for joining us today on this special broadcast. It was special because you were here. So thank you so much again. Really appreciate that. You guys take care and we will see you again. Take care.
Yeah. Take your time with this. Samba Tree salsa.
You wanna sip it
Again and again.
yeah.
From the leaf to the bottle, yeah, we slow it down.